In the 1920s, watch factories across America hired thousands of young women for one job, painting watch dials with paint that glowed in the dark. The paint was made with radium. The instruction was to sharpen the brush to a fine point with their lips. And in the laboratory next door, the men who made that paint handled it behind lead screens with tongs. This is the story of the Radium Girls. It looked like the job of the future. In 1917, the United States Radium Corporation opened a plant in Orange, New Jersey, making a luminous paint it called Undark, radium mixed with zinc sulfide, a soft green light that never switched off. The First World War turned it into a boom. Soldiers needed watches and instrument dials they could read in the dark. The plant took on around 70 dial painters, almost all of them young women. Across America and Canada, the industry would employ an estimated 4,000. The pay was excellent, about a penny and a half per dial. A fast painter could finish 250 dials in a shift and take home $3.75. Serious money for a working girl in 1920. And the work felt like magic. Radium was the wonder element of the age, sold in tonics and face creams as bottled health itself. So the girls played with it. They painted their nails, their buttons, their teeth. When the lights went out, they glowed. The technique had a rhythm. Lip, dip, paint. Point the brush between your lips, dip it in the radium, paint the dial. A rag or a rinse of water wasted time and wasted paint. So the company taught lips. Some of the women asked whether the paint was dangerous. They were told it was harmless. It was not. Radium is chemically similar to calcium, so the body makes a terrible mistake. It stores it in the bones. And there it stays, firing radiation into the living bone around it for a very long time. Radium's half-life is 1,600 years. Swallow by swallow, dial by dial, the girls were building it into their skeletons. And the company knew. In the same plant, the chemists handled radium behind lead screens with tongs and masks. US Radium had even circulated literature to the medical community describing radium's, quote, injurious effects. The women pointing brushes with their lips were never shown it. In 1923, the first dial painter died. She was a young woman in her 20s, and before her death, her jaw had come away from her skull. Her doctors had no explanation, so a story spread that protected the company: syphilis, a smear that buried the real cause and shamed the dead. But the cases kept coming. Dentists around Orange kept meeting the same impossible patient, a healthy young woman whose teeth were falling out, whose jawbone was crumbling and would not heal. In 1924, a dentist named Theodore Blum gave it a name in print: Radium Jaw. By that year, 50 women from the plant were ill and a dozen were dead. US Radium brought in a Harvard specialist, Cecil Drinker, to study the plant. He found a workplace saturated with radioactive dust, but the version of his report that reached the New Jersey Department of Labor had been altered. Grace Fryer had started painting dials in orange in 1917 at 18. She left in 1920. 2 years later, her teeth began to fall out. In 1925, a doctor finally connected her collapsing jaw to the factory, and she decided to sue. It took her 2 years just to find a lawyer willing to try. In May 1927, she filed against US Radium, joined by 4 other dial painters, all of them ill. By their first day in court in January 1928, 2 of the 5 were bedridden, and none of them could raise an arm to take the oath. That detail traveled around the world. That autumn, US Radium settled $10,000 each, a $600 yearly pension, and every medical bill paid for life. Everyone in the room understood how short those lives would be. Grace Fryer died in 1933. She was 34. Within a few years, all 5 women were gone. And radium stayed on sale. In 1932, a millionaire named Eben Byers died after drinking around 1,400 bottles of a radium tonic called Radithor. There were holes forming in his skull. The Wall Street Journal would remember it with a single line: "The radium water worked fine until his jaw came off." Justice moved slower than the disease. In Ottawa, Illinois, a second firm, the Radium Dial Company, kept hiring young women right through the 20s and 30s. When its painters finally won their case in 1938, one of them, Catherine Donahue, was too sick to travel, so the hearing came to her bedroom. The company appealed and appealed again until October 1939, when the United States Supreme Court refused to hear it. The women had won on paper. Most never saw a payout. Catherine Donahue was already dead. What the Radium Girls left behind reaches into your life today. Their cases helped establish that a company answers in court for what its workplace does to its workers. Dial painting with radium did not fully stop for decades. The last radium paint factory closed in 1978. And in 1987, at the graves of the dial painters, instruments could still measure radiation rising out of the ground. The women were told the paint was harmless. Their bones will still be radioactive in the year 3500.